CLEP History Study Guide. Question 1. Which answer best matches this CLEP History Study Guide clue? A thinker emphasized the general will and popular sovereignty? Option A. Rousseau. Option B. United Nations. Option C. Thesis statement. Option D. Northern Renaissance. The correct answer is option A. Rousseau. This points to Rousseau because his ideas influenced democratic and revolutionary politics. United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Thesis statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence, and Northern Renaissance points instead to reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. Question 2. How would a CLEP history question most likely test this clue? A military alliance linked the United States with Western Europe. Option A. Copernicus. Option B. Watergate. Option C. NATO. Option D. Declaration of Independence. The correct answer is option C. NATO. This points to NATO because the alliance was designed to deter Soviet aggression. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the Sun at the center of the solar system. Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation, and Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists' justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. Question 3. Why does this clue matter for CLEP History Study Guide? European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation? Option A. Berlin Conference. Option B. McCarthyism. Option C. Montesquieu. Option D. Calvinism. The correct answer is option A. Berlin Conference. This points to Berlin Conference because the meeting accelerated the scramble for Africa. McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers, and Calvinism points instead to a Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities. Question 4. When reviewing CLEP History Study Guide, which answer fits this clue? Colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor. Option A. Hebrew monotheism. Option B. Storming of the Bastille. Option C. Boston Tea Party. Option D. Trail of Tears. The correct answer is option C. Boston Tea Party. This points to Boston Tea Party because the protest led Britain to impose tougher measures on Massachusetts. Hebrew monotheism points instead to belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion. Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789, and Trail of Tears points instead to Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. Question 5. Where does this clue point in CLEP history content? Evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. Option A. Machiavelli. Option B. Darwinism. Option C. Dust Bowl. Option D. Korean War. The correct answer is option B. Darwinism. This points to Darwinism because Darwin's ideas influenced science and social debates. Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression, and Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. Question 6. Identify the answer connected to this CLEP History Study Guide clue. Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Option A. Jamestown. Option B. Whiskey Rebellion. Option C. Intolerable Acts. Option D. Urbanization. The correct answer is option B. Whiskey Rebellion. This points to Whiskey Rebellion because the episode demonstrated the strength of the new government. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Intolerable Acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party, and urbanization points instead to industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities. Question 7. Choose the term that completes this history clue. Improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Option A. Dust Bowl. Option B. Julius Caesar. Option C. John Brown's Raid. Option D. Steam engine. The correct answer is option D. Steam engine. This points to steam engine because steam power accelerated industrial growth. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic, and John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Question 8. Select the best match for this CLEP-style clue. The first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Option A, Prohibition. Option B, Whiskey Rebellion. Option C, Black Codes. Option D, Articles of Confederation. The correct answer is option D, Articles of Confederation. This points to Articles of Confederation because its weaknesses helped lead to calls for a stronger constitution. Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax, and Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people. Question 9. Determine which answer explains this CLEP History Study Guide clue. Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Option A, European Union. Option B, Liberalism. Option C, Athenian democracy. Option D, Yorktown. The correct answer is option D, Yorktown. This points to Yorktown because the victory effectively ended major fighting in the Revolution. European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Liberalism points instead to political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government, and Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision-making. Question 10. Recognize the event or idea behind this clue. The Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Option A, Dred Scott decision. Option B, populist movement. Option C, Bill of Rights. Option D, 12 tables. The correct answer is option A, Dred Scott decision. This points to Dred Scott decision because the decision inflamed sectional tensions before the Civil War. Populist movement points instead to farmers demanded reforms such as free silver, railroad regulation, and direct democracy. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse, and 12 tables points instead to Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens. Question 11. Pinpoint the best answer for this history clue. An American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. Option A, Homeric epics. Option B, French and Indian War. Option C, European coal and steel community. Option D, Saratoga. The correct answer is option D, Saratoga. This points to Saratoga because the battle became a diplomatic turning point in the Revolution. Homeric epics points instead to Greek poems such as the Iliad and Odyssey preserved heroic ideals. French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. And European coal and steel community points instead to Western European states' pooled coal and steel production after World War II. Question 12. Spot the answer that matches this exam clue. The Roman Empire experienced relative peace and prosperity. Option A, Cuban Missile Crisis. Option B, Pax Romana. Option C, Magna Carta. Option D, McCarthyism. The correct answer is option B, Pax Romana. This points to Pax Romana because this period helped trade and imperial culture flourish. Cuban Missile Crisis points instead to a nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Magna Carta points instead to English nobles forced limits on royal power in 1215, and McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Question 13. Compare the options and choose the one tied to this clue. Senators became elected directly by voters. Option A, 17th Amendment. Option B, Monorealism. Option C, Emancipation Proclamation. Option D, Cuban Missile Crisis. The correct answer is option A, 17th Amendment. This points to 17th Amendment because the amendment reflected progressive demands for more democracy. Monorealism points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society. Emancipation Proclamation points instead to Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union, and Cuban Missile Crisis points instead to a nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Question 14. Connect this CLEP History Study Guide clue to the right answer. U.S. entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home. Option A, War of 1812. Option B, World War I. Option C, Storming of the Bastille. Option D, Corroboration. The correct answer is option B, World War I. This points to World War I because the war affected diplomacy, civil liberties, and the economy. War of 1812 points instead to conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789, and Corroboration points instead to historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. Question 15. Trace this clue to the correct historical topic. Entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war. Option A, Treaty of Versailles. Option B, Italian unification. Option C, Lend-Lease. Option D, World War I alliances. The correct answer is option D, World War I alliances. This points to World War I alliances because alliance systems helped escalate conflict in 1914. Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi and nationalist politics helped create Italy, and Lend-Lease points instead to the United States supplied allies before entering World War II. Question 16. Explain which answer fits this CLEP history clue. Historians explain how one development helped produce another. Option A, chronology. Option B, causation. Option C, Machiavelli. Option D, Industrial Revolution. The correct answer is option B, causation. This points to causation because causation connects events rather than just listing dates. Chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince, and Industrial Revolution points instead to mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Question 17. Interpret this clue and choose the best answer. European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Option A, Congress of Vienna. Option B, Harlem Renaissance. Option C, Fall of the Berlin Wall. Option D, Rousseau. The correct answer is option A, Congress of Vienna. This points to Congress of Vienna because the settlement tried to prevent another continent-wide war. Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989, and Rousseau points instead to a thinker emphasized the general will and popular sovereignty. Question 18. Analyze this history clue and find the match. Western European states pooled coal and steel production after World War II. Option A, Transcontinental Railroad. Option B, Shays Rebellion. Option C, Montesquieu. Option D, European Coal and Steel Community. The correct answer is option D, European Coal and Steel Community. This points to European Coal and Steel Community because the organization helped begin European integration. Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation, and Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Question 19. Recall the answer linked to this clue. Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Option A, Diocletian. Option B, Hitler. Option C, Great Compromise. Option D, Federalist Papers. The correct answer is option B, Hitler. This points to Hitler because Hitler's rule led to World War II and the Holocaust. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Great Compromise points instead to the Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states, and Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power. Question 20. Name the event, idea, or policy described here. The Supreme Court established judicial review. Option A, baby boom. Option B, scholasticism. Option C, Marbury v. Madison. Option D, fascism. The correct answer is option C, Marbury v. Madison. This points to Marbury v. Madison because the case confirmed the court's power to declare laws unconstitutional. Baby boom points instead to birth rates rose after World War II, scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology, and fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Question 21. Match this CLEP History Study Guide clue with the correct answer. Resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Option A, conservatism. Option B, lend-lease. Option C, Dust Bowl. Option D, Stonewall Uprising. The correct answer is option D, Stonewall Uprising. This points to Stonewall Uprising because the event became a symbol of modern gay rights activism. Conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Lend-lease points instead to the United States supplied allies before entering World War II, and Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Question 22. Distinguish the correct answer from similar history topics. Revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power. Option A, Russian Revolution. Option B, Socrates. Option C, Holocaust. Option D, investiture controversy. The correct answer is option A, Russian Revolution. This points to Russian Revolution because the revolution created the first communist state. Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry. Holocaust points instead to Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims, and investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops. Question 23. Locate the correct choice for this CLEP clue. Movable type spread books and ideas more quickly. Option A, Bill of Rights. Option B, printing press. Option C, Spanish Armada. Option D, Machiavelli. The correct answer is option B, printing press. This points to printing press because printing accelerated the Renaissance and Reformation. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige, and Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in the prince. Question 24. Review this clue and select the best answer. A military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Option A, Weimar Republic. Option B, Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option C, Munich Conference. Option D, Napoleon Bonaparte. The correct answer is option D, Napoleon Bonaparte. This points to Napoleon Bonaparte because his rule reshaped European politics and law. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination, and Munich Conference points instead to European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Question 25. Decide which option this CLEP history clue describes. Liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe. Option A, Articles of Confederation. Option B, Dreyfus Affair. Option C, 14th Amendment. Option D, Revolutions of 1848. The correct answer is option D, Revolutions of 1848. This points to revolutions of 1848 because most revolutions failed but revealed deep social and political tensions. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Dreyfus Affair points instead to a French scandal over antisemitism and military injustice divided society, and 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Question 26. Evaluate the options and choose the one that fits. A Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Option A, Whiskey Rebellion. Option B, Gettysburg. Option C, Salutary Neglect. Option D, Hitler. The correct answer is option B, Gettysburg. This points to Gettysburg because the battle halted Lee's invasion of the North. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Salutary Neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763, and Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Question 27. Consider this clue and identify the historical match. The United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. Option A, Spanish-American War. Option B, Revolutions of 1848. Option C, Greek polis. Option D, conservatism. The correct answer is option A, Spanish-American War. This points to Spanish-American War because the war marked a shift toward American imperial power. Revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe. Greek polis points instead to city-states such as Athens and Sparta shaped Greek political life, and conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Question 28. Predict the answer. A CLEP item is targeting a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. Option A, Council of Trent. Option B, Korean War. Option C, Prohibition. Option D, Secession. The correct answer is option B, Korean War. This points to Korean War because the war showed containment becoming a military policy in Asia. Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders' clarified doctrine and Reformed church practices. Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol, and secession points instead to Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Question 29. Notice the key clue and choose the matching answer. Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Option A, Mayflower Compact. Option B, Compromise of 1850. Option C, Continuity and Change. Option D, GI Bill. The correct answer is option A, Mayflower Compact. This points to Mayflower Compact because it showed an early colonial commitment to majority rule and civil government. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Continuity and change points instead to analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time, and GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Question 30. Estimate which topic this clue would test. The U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Option A, Alexander the Great. Option B, Japanese American internment. Option C, Socrates. Option D, Peace of Westphalia. The correct answer is option B, Japanese American internment. This points to Japanese American internment because the policy reflected wartime fear and racial prejudice. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry, and Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Question 31. Judge which option best completes this clue. Tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans. Option A, Magna Carta. Option B, Dawes Act. Option C, 14th Amendment. Option D, United Nations. The correct answer is option B, Dawes Act. This points to Dawes Act because the policy reduced tribal land holdings and attacked communal ownership. Magna Carta points instead to English nobles' forced limits on royal power in 1215. 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution, and United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 32. Assess the clue and select the correct history term. Federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests in voting. Option A, chronology. Option B, Industrial Revolution. Option C, Voting Rights Act of 1965. Option D, Sherman Antitrust Act. The correct answer is option C, Voting Rights Act of 1965. This points to Voting Rights Act of 1965 because the act protected voting access, especially in the South. Chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Industrial Revolution points instead to mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies, and Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Question 33. Classify this clue under the right historical answer. Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. Option A, D-Day. Option B, Great Depression. Option C, Dust Bowl. Option D, Stagflation. The correct answer is option A, D-Day. This points to D-Day because the invasion opened a major Western front against Nazi Germany. Great Depression points instead to a severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression, and stagflation points instead to the 1970s saw high inflation combined with slow growth. Question 34. Infer the answer from this short CLEP clue. Authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Option A, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option B, fascism. Option C, Bill of Rights. Option D, European Union. The correct answer is option B, fascism. This points to fascism because fascist movements emphasized state power, hierarchy, and militarism. Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased Northern anti-slavery feeling. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse, and European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Question 35. Link this clue to the correct exam topic. Historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. Option A, Alexander the Great. Option B, Whiskey Rebellion. Option C, corroboration. Option D, Persian Empire. The correct answer is option C, corroboration. This points to corroboration because corroboration helps avoid relying on one source alone. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax, and Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Question 36. Uncover the answer behind this history clue. Women gained constitutional protection for voting rights. Option A, Diocletian. Option B, Boston Tea Party. Option C, Dreyfus Affair. Option D, 19th Amendment. The correct answer is option D, 19th Amendment. This points to 19th Amendment because the amendment marked a major victory for women's suffrage. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor, and Dreyfus Affair points instead to a French scandal over anti-Semitism and military injustice divided society. Question 37. Test your recall by choosing the answer for this clue. Plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Option A, Black Death. Option B, Nullification Crisis. Option C, Treaty of Versailles. Option D, Petrarch. The correct answer is option A, Black Death. This points to Black Death because the pandemic weakened labor systems and changed social relations. Nullification Crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Treaty of Versailles points instead to Germany faced blame, reparations and territorial losses after World War I, and Petrarch points instead to a Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Question 38. Practice this CLEP- style match. Politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Option A, Jacksonian democracy. Option B, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option C, nationalism. Option D, Napoleon Bonaparte. The correct answer is option A, Jacksonian democracy. This points to Jacksonian democracy because the era broadened participation for many white men while excluding women and most black Americans. Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity, and Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Question 39. Challenge yourself to identify this history clue. A philosopher advocated separation of powers. Option A, Renaissance humanism. Option B, Monrealism. Option C, Montesquieu. Option D, G.I. Bill. The correct answer is option C, Montesquieu. This points to Montesquieu because his ideas influenced constitutional design. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Monrealism points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society, and G.I. Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Question 40. Confirm the correct answer for this clue. Her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased northern anti-slavery feeling. Option A, Galileo. Option B, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option C, Bolsheviks. Option D, urbanization. The correct answer is option B, Harriet Beecher Stowe. This points to Harriet Beecher Stowe because the book made slavery's cruelty more visible to many readers. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917, and urbanization points instead to industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities. Question 41. Verify which option matches this CLEP history clue. US aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments. Option A, Peace of Westphalia. Option B, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option C, Marshall Plan in Europe. Option D, Christianity. The correct answer is option C, Marshall Plan in Europe. This points to Marshall Plan in Europe because the plan linked recovery with Cold War strategy. Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased northern anti-slavery feeling, and Christianity points instead to a religion grew within the Roman world and later became dominant in Europe. Question 42. Solve this quick history clue. Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Option A, Freedmen's Bureau. Option B, Hammurabi's Code. Option C, Missouri Compromise. Option D, Compromise of 1850. The correct answer is option D, Compromise of 1850. This points to Compromise of 1850 because the package tried to manage sectional conflict after the Mexican Cession. Freedmen's Bureau points instead to a federal agency assisted formerly enslaved people after the Civil War. Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy, and Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Question 43. Figure out the correct answer from this clue. A Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Option A, Constantine. Option B, economic interpretation. Option C, Spanish Armada. Option D, source bias. The correct answer is option A, Constantine. This points to Constantine because his policies changed the status of Christianity in the empire. Economic interpretation points instead to historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige, and source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Question 44. Find the option that best fits this clue. The Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional. Option A, common sense. Option B, Whiskey Rebellion. Option C, Constantine. Option D, Brown v. Board of Education. The correct answer is option D, Brown v. Board of Education. This points to Brown v. Board of Education because the decision challenged the legal foundation of Jim Crow segregation. Common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax, and Constantine points instead to a Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Question 45. Remember which topic connects to this clue. Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Option A, Hammurabi's Code. Option B, Constantine. Option C, Intolerable Acts. Option D, source bias. The correct answer is option C, Intolerable Acts. This points to Intolerable Acts because the laws pushed colonies toward greater unity against Britain. Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy. Constantine points instead to a Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople, and source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Question 46. Highlight the answer described by this clue. Women organized for voting rights and legal equality. Option A, NATO. Option B, women's suffrage. Option C, Mussolini. Option D, nullification crisis. The correct answer is option B, women's suffrage. This points to women's suffrage because the movement challenged gender limits in political life. NATO points instead to a military alliance linked the United States with Western Europe. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I, and nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Question 47. Separate the correct answer from close distractors. England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Option A, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option B, Jamestown. Option C, Mayflower Compact. Option D, Glorious Revolution. The correct answer is option D, Glorious Revolution. This points to Glorious Revolution because the event limited monarchy and supported constitutional government. Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased Northern anti-slavery feeling. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions, and Mayflower Compact points instead to Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Question 48. Clarify which history topic this clue describes. A Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Option A, Charlemagne. Option B, Pearl Harbor. Option C, Montesquieu. Option D, Alexander the Great. The correct answer is option A, Charlemagne. This points to Charlemagne because his coronation linked kingship with the church in medieval Europe. Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers, and Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the Eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Question 49. Relate this clue to the correct CLEP history answer. Federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Option A, Chinese Exclusion Act. Option B, Copernicus. Option C, War of 1812. Option D, Intolerable Acts. The correct answer is option A, Chinese Exclusion Act. This points to Chinese Exclusion Act because the act reflected nativism and racial exclusion. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the Sun at the center of the solar system. War of 1812 points instead to conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results, and Intolerable Acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Question 50. Detect the answer hidden in this clue. Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Option A, Holocaust. Option B, European Coal and Steel Community. Option C, Embargo Act. Option D, Declaration of Independence. The correct answer is option A, Holocaust. This points to Holocaust because the genocide became a central moral catastrophe of World War II. European Coal and Steel Community points instead to Western European states' pooled coal and steel production after World War II. Embargo Act points instead to Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France, and Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists' justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. Question 51. Differentiate the matching answer from other periods. A proposal tried to ban slavery in lands gained from Mexico. Option A, Treaty of Versailles. Option B, Alien and Sedition Acts. Option C, Montesquieu. Option D, Wilmot Proviso. The correct answer is option D, Wilmot Proviso. This points to Wilmot Proviso because the proposal sharpened sectional conflict over expansion. Treaty of Versailles points instead to Germany faced blame, reparations, and territorial losses after World War I. Alien and Sedition Acts points instead to Federalists restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France, and Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Question 52. Carefully choose which option matches this clue. Rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Option A, Julius Caesar. Option B, Berlin Conference. Option C, Transcontinental Railroad. Option D, Monroe Doctrine. The correct answer is option C, Transcontinental Railroad. This points to Transcontinental Railroad because the railroad transformed travel, trade, and the Western economy. Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic. Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation, and Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Question 53. Question: which answer a CLEP item would expect? Political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West? Option A, fall of Western Rome. Option B, Bacon's Rebellion. Option C, Cuban Missile Crisis. Option D, Machiavelli. The correct answer is option A, fall of Western Rome. This points to fall of Western Rome because the fall marks a major transition to medieval Europe. Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia, exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Cuban Missile Crisis points instead to a nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war, and Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Question 54. Explore this clue and identify the correct answer. Thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Option A, Machiavelli. Option B, Scientific Revolution. Option C, Yalta Conference. Option D, fall of Western Rome. The correct answer is option B, Scientific Revolution. This points to scientific revolution because the movement transformed European science. Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II, and fall of Western Rome points instead to political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. Question 55. Revisit this history clue and choose its match. The United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Option A, European Union. Option B, atomic bombings. Option C, Crimean War. Option D, Julius Caesar. The correct answer is option B, atomic bombings. This points to atomic bombings because the bombings helped end the Pacific War and began the nuclear age. European Union points instead to European integration, created shared institutions and a common market. Crimean War points instead to a mid-19th century war, exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy, and Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic. Question 56. Discover which answer. This CLEP clue describes schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate. Option A, World War I. Option B, medieval universities. Option C, Dawes Act. Option D, Council of Trent. The correct answer is option B, medieval universities. This points to medieval universities because universities became centers of learning in medieval Europe. World War I points instead to U.S. entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home. Dawes Act points instead to tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans, and Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and reformed church practices. Question 57. Investigate the correct choice for this clue. African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Option A, Harlem Renaissance. Option B, Montgomery bus boycott. Option C, Alien and Sedition Acts. Option D, Henry VIII. The correct answer is option A, Harlem Renaissance. This points to Harlem Renaissance because the movement celebrated black culture and creativity. Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. Alien and Sedition Acts points instead to Federalists restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France, and Henry VIII points instead to the English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England. Question 58. Read the clue and select the matching topic. Analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time. Option A, continuity and change. Option B, reign of terror. Option C, European coal and steel community. Option D, fall of Western Rome. The correct answer is option A, continuity and change. This points to continuity and change because this skill is common in history interpretation. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. European coal and steel community points instead to Western European states pooled coal and steel production after World War II, and fall of Western Rome points instead to political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. Question 59. Complete the exam-style clue with the correct answer. Conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Option A, War of 1812. Option B, Shays' Rebellion. Option C, John Locke. Option D, Ancient Egypt. The correct answer is option A, War of 1812. This points to War of 1812 because the war reinforced national pride and highlighted trade and maritime issues. Shays' Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. And ancient Egypt points instead to pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long-lasting civilization. Question 60. Decode this history clue and choose the right answer. Freed people and poor whites farmed land for a share of the crop. Option A, Cuban Missile Crisis. Option B, Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option C, Seneca Falls Convention. Option D, sharecropping. The correct answer is option D, sharecropping. This points to sharecropping because the system often trapped farmers in debt after Reconstruction. Cuban Missile Crisis points instead to a nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination. And Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. Question 61. Rapidly identify the best answer for this clue. Events are placed in correct time order. Option A, chronology. Option B, Kansas-Nebraska Act. Option C, Jane Addams. Option D, Dust Bowl. The correct answer is option A, chronology. This points to chronology because chronology helps students recognize cause, sequence, and periodization. Kansas-Nebraska Act points instead to popular sovereignty reopened the slavery question in Western territories. Jane Addams points instead to a reformer-founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor, and Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Question 62. Wisely choose which response matches this clue. The peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Option A, Muckrakers. Option B, Manifest Destiny. Option C, Harlem Renaissance. Option D, Treaty of Versailles. The correct answer is option D, Treaty of Versailles. This points to Treaty of Versailles because the treaty shaped post-war tensions despite U.S. refusal to join the League. Muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward, and Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Question 63. Rank the choices by relevance and pick the best match. U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Option A, Vietnam War. Option B, Scopes Trial. Option C, Gettysburg. Option D, Russian Revolution. The correct answer is option A, Vietnam War. This points to Vietnam War because the conflict deeply divided American society. Scopes Trial points instead to a trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism. Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War, and Russian Revolution points instead to revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power. Question 64. Prioritize the clue and select the correct history answer. A later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Option A, secondary source. Option B, Spanish Armada. Option C, mercantilism. Option D, Persian Empire. The correct answer is option A, secondary source. This points to secondary source because secondary sources synthesize evidence after the fact. Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. Mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country, and Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Question 65. Focus on the clue and pick the correct option. A philosopher wrote dialogues and imagined rule by philosopher minus kings. Option A, storming of the Bastille. Option B, Plato. Option C, Mussolini. Option D, abolitionism. The correct answer is option B, Plato. This points to Plato because his works shaped idealist philosophy and political thought. Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I, and abolitionism points instead to reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments. Question 66. Use this clue to identify the tested topic. A severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures. Option A, John Locke. Option B, United Nations. Option C, Great Depression. Option D, Civil Rights Act of 1964. The correct answer is option C, Great Depression. This points to Great Depression because the crisis transformed expectations of federal economic responsibility. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation, and Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination. Question 67. Apply your CLEP history knowledge to this clue. The Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Option A, John Locke. Option B, Roe v. Wade. Option C, Brown v. Board of Education. Option D, Aristotle. The correct answer is option B, Roe v. Wade. This points to Roe v. Wade because the case became central to debates over privacy and reproductive rights. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Brown v. Board of Education points instead to the Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional, and Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Question 68. Between the clues, which answer fits this topic? Colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Option A, Dreyfus Affair. Option B, Decolonization. Option C, Constantine. Option D, Industrial Revolution. The correct answer is option B, Decolonization. This points to decolonization because the process ended many European empires. Dreyfus Affair points instead to a French scandal over anti-Semitism and military injustice divided society. Constantine points instead to a Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople, and Industrial Revolution points instead to mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Question 69. Promptly recognize which answer fits this clue. European states expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century. Option A, 13th Amendment. Option B, Roman Republic. Option C, New Imperialism. Option D, Punic Wars. The correct answer is option C, New Imperialism. This points to new imperialism because imperialism sought resources, markets, prestige, and strategic advantage. 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States. Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites, and Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean. Question 70. Smartly select the best historical match. Political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government. Option A, liberalism. Option B, salutary neglect. Option C, Hamilton's financial plan. Option D, populist movement. The correct answer is option A, liberalism. This points to liberalism because liberalism challenged absolutism and traditional privilege. Salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Hamilton's financial plan points instead to the federal government assumed debts and supported a national bank, and populist movement points instead to farmers demanded reforms such as free silver, railroad regulation, and direct democracy. Question 71. Swiftly confirm the answer tied to this clue. Delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Option A, continuity and change. Option B, socialism. Option C, Alien and Sedition Acts. Option D, Constitutional Convention. The correct answer is option D, Constitutional Convention. This points to Constitutional Convention because the meeting produced the U.S. Constitution in 1787. Continuity and change points instead to analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time. Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers, and Alien and Sedition Acts points instead to Federalists restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France. Question 72. Diligently review and choose the matching answer. Slavery was abolished throughout the United States. Option A, Homeric epics. Option B, iconoclasm. Option C, liberalism. Option D, 13th Amendment. The correct answer is option D, 13th Amendment. This points to 13th Amendment because the amendment legally ended slavery after the Civil War. Homeric epics points instead to Greek poems such as the Iliad and Odyssey preserved heroic ideals. Iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire, and liberalism points instead to political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government. Question 73. Immediately decide which option the clue describes improved farming increased food production before industrialization. Option A, Great Society. Option B, Townsend Acts. Option C, Fall of the Berlin Wall. Option D, Agricultural Revolution. The correct answer is option D, Agricultural Revolution. This points to agricultural revolution because higher productivity supported population growth and urban labor. Great Society points instead to Lyndon Johnson's programs targeted poverty, education, healthcare, and civil rights. Townsend Acts points instead to Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper, and tea, and Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Question 74. Narrow the choices to the answer matching this clue. A deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws. Option A, Bill of Rights. Option B, Yalta Conference. Option C, Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Option D, Greek Polis. The correct answer is option C, Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. This points to Triangle Shirtwaist Fire because the disaster exposed dangerous industrial working conditions. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II, and Greek Polis points instead to city-minus states such as Athens and Sparta shaped Greek political life. Question 75. Eliminate distractors and choose the matching answer. Journalists exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Option A, Roe v. Wade. Option B, Vietnam War. Option C, Progressive Era. Option D, Muckrakers. The correct answer is option D, Muckrakers. This points to muckrakers because their reporting helped build support for progressive reforms. Roe v. Wade points instead to the Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Vietnam War points instead to U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment, and Progressive Era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Question 76. Again, which option fits after reading this CLEP-style clue? Reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments. Option A, Peloponnesian War. Option B, 12 Tables. Option C, Abolitionism. Option D, Vietnam War. The correct answer is option C, Abolitionism. This points to abolitionism because the movement challenged slavery and intensified sectional conflict. Peloponnesian War points instead to Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-minus states. 12 Tables points instead to Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens. And Vietnam War points instead to U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Question 77. Think through this clue and identify the answer. Historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Option A, Gilded Age. Option B, Economic Interpretation. Option C, Socrates. Option D, Chinese Exclusion Act. The correct answer is option B, Economic Interpretation. This points to economic interpretation because economic factors often shape political and social developments. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth, deep inequality, and political corruption. Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry, and Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Question 78. Quickly analyze which history answer fits. A source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Option A, Second Great Awakening. Option B, Voting Rights Act of 1965. Option C, Point of View. Option D, Cuban Missile Crisis. The correct answer is option C, Point of View. This points to point of view because understanding perspective helps evaluate evidence. Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance. Voting Rights Act of 1965 points instead to federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests in voting, and Cuban Missile Crisis points instead to a nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Question 79. Inspect a clue and select a correct option. Religious revival stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority. Option A, Northern Renaissance. Option B, Aristotle. Option C, Great Awakening. Option D, Romanticism. The correct answer is option C, Great Awakening. This points to Great Awakening because the revivals shaped colonial religion and encouraged more individual religious choice. Northern Renaissance points instead to reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher-emphasized observation, logic, and classification, and Romanticism points instead to artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression. Question 80. Study this clue and choose the matching history term. A heliocentric model placed the Sun at the center of the solar system. Option A, Economic interpretation. Option B, Marshall Plan. Option C, Treaty of Versailles. Option D, Copernicus. The correct answer is option D, Copernicus. This points to Copernicus because his theory challenged geocentric astronomy. Economic interpretation points instead to historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Marshall Plan points instead to the United States funded European recovery after World War II, and Treaty of Versailles points instead to Germany faced blame, reparations, and territorial losses after World War I. Question 81. Master this CLEP clue by selecting the answer. A congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for free people. Option A, Roman Republic. Option B, Radical Republicans. Option C, 17th Amendment. Option D, Mercantilism. The correct answer is option B, Radical Republicans. This points to Radical Republicans because they pushed for civil rights and tighter terms for former Confederates. Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a Senate, and checks among elites. 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters, and Mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country. Question 82. Drill in CLEP History Study Guide, which answer fits this clue? Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror? Option A, Renaissance humanism. Option B, Scopes trial. Option C, women's suffrage. Option D, Stalin. The correct answer is option D, Stalin. This points to Stalin because his policies transformed the USSR at enormous human cost. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Scopes trial points instead to a trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism, and women's suffrage points instead to women organized for voting rights and legal equality. Question 83. Speedily review and select the answer tied to this clue. The New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Option A, Alexander the Great. Option B, Social Security Act. Option C, Stonewall Uprising. Option D, 14th Amendment. The correct answer is option B, Social Security Act. This points to Social Security Act because the law built a lasting federal social safety net. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Stonewall Uprising points instead to resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement, and 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Question 84. Check which option fits this exam clue. Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Option A, cotton gin. Option B, Christianity. Option C, Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option D, Berlin Conference. The correct answer is option A, cotton gin. This points to cotton gin because the invention strengthened the cotton economy and deepened dependence on enslaved labor. Christianity points instead to a religion grew within the Roman world and later became dominant in Europe. Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination, and Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation. Question 85. Examine this clue and choose the correct answer. A Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Option A, storming of the Bastille. Option B, John Locke. Option C, Bill of Rights. Option D, Congress of Vienna. The correct answer is option A, storming of the Bastille. This points to storming of the Bastille because the event became a symbol of revolutionary action. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse, and Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Question 86. Closely compare the choices and identify the correct match. A reformer founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Option A, mercantilism. Option B, appeasement. Option C, Jane Addams. Option D, common sense. The correct answer is option C, Jane Addams. This points to Jane Addams because settlement houses addressed problems of industrial cities. Mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country. Appeasement points instead to Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war, and common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Question 87. Reason through this clue and choose the answer. Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. Option A, appeasement. Option B, Peloponnesian War. Option C, radical republicans. Option D, nullification crisis. The correct answer is option B, Peloponnesian War. This points to Peloponnesian War because the conflict damaged Greek political stability. Appeasement points instead to Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war. Radical Republicans points instead to a congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people, and nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Question 88. Sort the choices and pick the one. This clue describes Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery and reform. Option A, Council of Trent. Option B, investiture controversy. Option C, New Deal. Option D, Hitler. The correct answer is option C, New Deal. This points to New Deal because the New Deal redefined the role of the federal government in the economy. Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and reformed church practices. Investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops, and Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Question 89. Precisely identify which answer belongs with this clue. A nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Option A, Pearl Harbor. Option B, Federal Reserve Act. Option C, Cuban Missile Crisis. Option D, Triangular Trade. The correct answer is option C, Cuban Missile Crisis. This points to Cuban Missile Crisis because the crisis became a major Cold War confrontation. Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit, and Triangular Trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. Question 90. Assuredly select the answer that matches this clue. Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Option A, point of view. Option B, Washington's neutrality policy. Option C, Federal Reserve Act. Option D, lend-minus-lease. The correct answer is option C, Federal Reserve Act. This points to Federal Reserve Act because the act reshaped U.S. banking and monetary policy. Point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Washington's neutrality policy points instead to the young United States avoided taking sides in European wars, and lend-minus-lease points instead to the United States supplied allies before entering World War II. Question 91. Mark the best response to this CLEP clue. A philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Option A, Transcontinental Railroad. Option B, Great Depression. Option C, Chronology. Option D, John Locke. The correct answer is option D, John Locke. This points to John Locke because his ideas influenced liberalism and revolutionary thought. Transcontinental railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Great Depression points instead to a severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures, and chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Question 92. Pick the option that completes this history clue. Mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Option A, Industrial Revolution. Option B, Sputnik. Option C, Federal Reserve Act. Option D, Machiavelli. The correct answer is option A, Industrial Revolution. This points to Industrial Revolution because industrialization shifted Europe toward factory-based production. Sputnik points instead to the Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education. Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit, and Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Question 93. Look for the answer that fits this clue. People emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. Option A, Council of Trent. Option B, Enlightenment. Option C, Nationalism. Option D, Yorktown. The correct answer is option C, Nationalism. This points to nationalism because nationalism shaped unification movements and conflicts. Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders' clarified doctrine and Reformed church practices. Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition, and Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Question 94. Attentively study this clue and choose the correct match. African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. Option A, Social Security Act. Option B, European Union. Option C, Montgomery bus boycott. Option D, Munich Conference. The correct answer is option C, Montgomery bus boycott. This points to Montgomery bus boycott because the boycott became a major early civil rights victory. Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market, and Munich Conference points instead to European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Question 95. Instantly think through and identify the CLEP history answer. The Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Option A, Byzantine Empire. Option B, periodization. Option C, Missouri Compromise. Option D, New Deal. The correct answer is option A, Byzantine Empire. This points to Byzantine Empire because it continued Roman traditions long after the West fell. Periodization points instead to history is divided into meaningful eras based on patterns and turning points. Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory, and New Deal points instead to Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery and reform. Question 96. Recheck the clue and select the correct answer. The English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England. Option A, Petrarch. Option B, Hebrew monotheism. Option C, Henry VIII. Option D, Watergate. The correct answer is option C, Henry VIII. This points to Henry VIII because the break began the English Reformation. Petrarch points instead to a Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Hebrew monotheism points instead to belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion, and Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation. Question 97. Try this quick CLEP history clue. European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Option A, appeasement. Option B, Henry VIII. Option C, European Union. Option D, Napoleon Bonaparte. The correct answer is option C, European Union. This points to European Union because the EU grew from post-war cooperation. Appeasement points instead to Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war. Henry VIII points instead to the English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England, and Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Question 98. Answer this history clue with the best option. Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Option A, NATO. Option B, Weimar Republic. Option C, Diocletian. Option D, salutary neglect. The correct answer is option B, Weimar Republic. This points to Weimar Republic because its weakness helped create conditions for Nazi rise. NATO points instead to a military alliance linked the United States with Western Europe. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor-divided administration to manage imperial crisis, and salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Question 99. Resolve which answer this clue is testing. England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Option A, Pax Romana. Option B, Jamestown. Option C, Petrarch. Option D, Korean War. The correct answer is option B, Jamestown. This points to Jamestown because Jamestown became the first permanent English colony in North America. Pax Romana points instead to the Roman Empire experienced relative peace and prosperity. Petrarch points instead to a Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism, and Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. Question 100. Unlock the correct response to this clue. Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Option A, Indian Removal Act. Option B, 12 Tables. Option C, Reign of Terror. Option D, Secession. The correct answer is option D, secession. This points to secession because secession led directly to the Civil War. Indian Removal Act points instead to federal policy forced many native peoples west of the Mississippi. 12 Tables points instead to Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens. And Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic.